Hello, hello.
A very warm good afternoon to everyone present, respected authors, teachers, students, and my dear friends. I welcome you to the third day of Dibrugarh University International Literary Festival, and this particular session is titled Echoes from the Battlefield, where we will be listening to three very prominent authors. Our first author that we have is Babitha Justin. Uh, Babitha Justin, who is a writer and artist holding a PhD in travel writing, has 10 books to her name, and her works are a mixture of sharp tenderness and quiet defiance. Whether it is poetry, fiction, or visual art, she dives deep into memory, gender, and the landscapes that shape us. Her first poetry collection is titled Of Fireflies, Guns, and the Hills. Her most recent publications are From Cannons to Trauma and Salt, Pepper, and Silver Linings, celebrating our grandmother. Her other poetry collections are I Cook My Own Feast and 45 Shades of Brown. Her latest book is a short story collection titled The Way Madmen Smell. She has conducted two solo art exhibitions and illustrated the Indo African story Kichangani. So I welcome ma'am to this session. We have with us Yulia Musakovska, who is an internationally acclaimed Ukrainian poet, writer, and literary translator. She is the author of six poetry collections, including The God of Freedom, which was ranked among the top 10 Ukraine based books of 2024. Her works have been translated into more than 30 languages, reflecting her powerful global presence in contemporary poetry. She is also the recipient of the Asian Prize for Poetry 2025, and she is also a member of PEN Ukraine. I welcome Yulia Musakovska to this session. We have with us Rimka Iskubba, who is an Iraqi poet and translator currently living in the UK. She has several poetry collections to her credit. Among her prominent works of poetry, When Would You Believe I Am a Butterfly? I Fold My Wings and Sneak Off to Write, and Celebrating Lost Time are prominent. Her poems have been translated into several European languages, and she is also a recipient of several notable awards. I welcome Rimka Iskova to the session. We also have with us who will be the translator for this session. Mai Khaled is an Egyptian novelist, screenwriter, and lyric translator whose work blends psychological depth with rich cultural layers. She has published several acclaimed novels, including Gymnasium, Tamar, The Magic of Turquoise. Her novels have also been translated into Brazilian, Portuguese, and many other languages. Beyond fiction, she works in cultural development, curates literary programs for young readers, and collaborates with international book fairs and festivals across the Middle East, Europe, and South America. She is also a translator for Disney songs in Arabic, bringing global musical narrative into the Arab world. Her works consistently explores memory, identity, and the intimate geographies of Cairo and Alexandria, weaving personal history with broader social landscapes. So, with these few words, I would like to hand over the session to Babitha Justin. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And I'm so honored to be with such lovely poets uh, like Yulia and Reem. Now, Yulia and Reem, in this session, we are going to speak about war, love and war, Eros and Thanatos. And Yulia and Reem, from war zones, and conflict-ridden places. They talk about love, they talk about war, they talk about salvaging memory from war, they talk about the ruins of life. And we have always seen that all over the world, literary traditions have always spoken about war,
written about war, like the Ramayana, for example, or in Greek tradition, you're already familiar with the Odyssey and the Iliad. And of course, here we have contemporary women talking about war and writing from war zones. And they refuse to bracket these places as conflict zones. And there, not just war, they talk about memory, they talk about moral responsibility, they talk about love. And what, in fact, makes these women talk about all these spaces, all these wonderful human evocative emotions and passions with so much of intensity? And this is what we are going to cover today. And as you know, Yulia had been a huge hit in Kerala. I'm from Kerala. So she had been featured in Madhrubhumi. And, because of the contemporariness of Ukraine issue, she had been quite a bit featured, and her voice has been heard. But more people ought to hear her voice. More people have to actually think about war. And I'm sure Yulia is here not as a poet alone, but as also a person who speaks from the war zone, and hope she'll in fact sensitize us about what exactly is happening there. So my question to Yulia is, like, in your God of Freedom, the book I have here, I think it's available in the shelves, in a bookstore too. See, there are a lot of body images.
The weight of national history and war. How do you, in fact, interweave these images, and what does it mean for you as a poet from the war zones, writing about the war truths or different kind of truth from your personal and subjective point of view? Could you please tell us that?
Namaskar. It is a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for this lovely introduction. And first of all, I'd like to say that The God of Freedom, the book of mine that has been published in English translation that I have here, published in Ukrainian in 2021, before Russia's full-scale invasion. But one can clearly feel the war in these poems, not just the current war. For example, there is a poem, The Inheritance, that speaks of many family traumas, deportation, repression, and survival through the Second World War during the Soviet times, and how these experiences shaped the lives of my grandparents and their entire generation. So they were always reluctant to talk about these things, but understanding what they went through gives us a stronger foundation and a deeper awareness of who we are, and also gives us strength to persevere, to continue resisting this genocidal Russian aggression that has happened to our beautiful country that was just starting to prosper into a free democracy with so many opportunities, especially for young people. So elaborating on your question here about the body and how it's reflected in the poem. So basically, what should I start with? So maybe I'll start with what I talked on the first day of the festival. I talked about how my interest in poetry stemmed from interest in human relations and their complexity. So I was a love poet. I wrote about motherhood that inspired me, about societal expectations and challenges for women. But in 2014, when Russia attacked Ukraine, when they invaded the regions of Lugansk and Donetsk and illegally annexed the Crimea, I felt that my world turned upside down. So the shadow of war, well, a big war, was beginning to loom over us. So the war crept into my poetry and it has never left. All stories were now unfolding against this backdrop, this premonition. So I wrote poems like Emergency Bag and Men Carry War Inside Them back in 2014. And in 2022, when Russia attacked us on full scale, these poems were perceived as very relevant. Also, the premonition, this anxiety of this approaching disaster, is something very physical. You are carrying inside of your body for a long time. So we've been carrying this premonition of the big war for 8 years before it happened. So the movement between private and collective is certainly very intuitive. And the personal becomes actually one of many, many stories, similar stories. And another thing is that the enemy wants to silence us. So this is actually a war against culture, the war to erase Ukrainian identity and also erase as many carriers of this identity as possible. It's destroying museums, universities, cultural institutions, libraries, and occupiers are stealing our artwork and taking them to Russia, and they're burning Ukrainian books. So for me to be able to find the voice to speak about was a critical thing, was the most important thing. And another thing, I actually think there's only one truth, but there are different ways to tell it. So we are now overloaded with this information through the countless media, social media, but the truth is always only one. So when it comes to the wartime, Russia is also waging an informational war. It's a hybrid war. There are so many fake narratives. There are so many twisted facts. And of course, they're investing huge money in it, earned, for example, by selling their oil. So they're not just using it to buy bombs, but also to create fake narratives that are helping them destroy Ukraine. So while history speaks about events and journalism tells stories, poetry is centered around experiences and emotions. And poetry always speaks from a human perspective. In poetry, we step up as humans to humans, sharing our joy and pain and also connecting over it. And since 2022, I've been traveling a lot across continents. It's been many, many countries, many of them multiple times. And there I can see how people are reacting to poetry, how strongly they're reacting. And this emotional connection means a lot to us. And of course, as a poet, I'm both honored and humbled to be here today in your wonderful company and be able to tell you my story through my poetry.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yulia. And I'm sure the young generation, especially the students here in Debrugarh, are very keenly listening to you. All of us are listening to your poetry and the ravages your country is going through. Now, coming to Reem. Reem, I read that in The Sea Tells My Fortune, in your book, you say that poetry seemed to abandon you at a time when there was an Iraqi invasion. Now, could you please tell us, like, you're also a poet who writes about love. It looks very unusual for people, when they read you as a love poet, thinking it's a place of conflict. How do you write about love? But for you, love is also is an act of resistance. So how do you go about writing resistance into your poems? Could you tell us how you do it?
First of all, I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Dibrugar. Thank you, all the audience. I'm honored with this lovely, beautiful audience. And thank you, Babita, for giving me this opportunity to express myself. Well, my name is Reem Kais Kuba. I was born in Baghdad. This is a short thing about me. I was born in Baghdad. The city of peace, the city of 1001 nights, the city of the Arabian Nights. I was in the primary school when the first war was attacking Iraq. And since then, and since the dictatorship came, I've been facing wars daily, daily. Used to live our life and befriend the death daily. We talk to death about life daily when we have our breakfast and first coffee in the morning. This is how I faced life, I lived my life with parallel to death. In one of the wars, which was the invasion of the Americans to Iraq. This was on 2003. In 2000, sorry, before that, I wrote poetry. I started writing poetry since I was 9. So I was acquainted with what poetry means since I was a child. So I wrote about everything. I wrote about love. I wrote about since I was child, I wrote about my doll, my cat, my mom, the lilac tree by the river in our lushly garden by the riverside. Anyway, at this, I mean, these atmospheres created a real poet that is so. I was so sensitive towards everything. I grew up there, and then one day. A war after war, a war after war, even in the small peace that we had between two wars, we used to live, we used to sneak out writing and loving. And I mean, you have to live your life at the end. It's not a battlefield, it's life, you see? So we were full of joy anyway. We used to love the beauty, we used to love everything beautiful, you know. And through this special question that you asked, one day I couldn't write anything. The poetry became a very remote place that I can't see. Um, I was silent against what's happening. I mean, maybe this was the crucial war, the most crucial war to me. I'm the one who is acquainted with all these wars. Come on, what's going on? Why am I silent? I couldn't. I just couldn't. So it happened that my sister is a painter, is an architect, and she's an artist as well. And one day she came to me with a painting, and she said, "Look, I drew at the end. Look." And the painting was only Adam and Eve with blue, wonderful turquoise colors. And I started crying. I said, "How could you draw this among all these blood festivals in the streets?" And I kept that painting at my home that day, and poetry just started raining inside me. And I started writing about love and only love. I mean, this is how I started knowing how to face death with life, how to face ugliness with beauty, how to face blood and the dark, black, muddy, filthy color of blood. with blue, with turquoise, with love, with I don't know, with childhood. I mean, all these meanings of beauty. And this is how we started. She started drawing every day a new painting, and I started writing every day a new poem. And we had a book. I'm sorry, I forgot to bring it today. It became our project together, paintings and writings. We couldn't make a life became so horrible with the curfew, with the Americans and their troops in the streets. We couldn't even make a session of our paintings and poetry together. Nevertheless, we learned how to fight all this, how to stand to ourselves among all this, ruins. I mean, this is how we learned how to live.
Thank you, Reem. So as we can see, love for her was a kind of response to war, the response and a kind of survival. Her sister and she undertook those really, really troublesome days. Now, coming to you, Leah. So you've been, in fact, talking about the strife and conflict and slow invasion of Russia right from 2014. And we can also see that you speak about freedom as well, freedom in captivity, right? Your personal freedom, your spiritual freedom, political freedom, etc. So, how do you see the kind of personal and political getting together? How did it evolve and intricately get into each other to shape up your poetry?
I should start that the main idea of the book, The God of Freedom, is not only that Ukrainians are freedom worshippers, which they are, because so many generations of our people were fighting for the independence and now are actually forced to defend it again. But the book is based on the idea, it's something that I thought of, that there is a divine spirit of freedom living in every human being. And when our freedom is attacked, taken away, that spirit starts to act. So it starts to transform us. And we begin doing extraordinary things we've never thought before. We never imagined we were capable of. So I must say that the idea of this title lies not only in my love for mythology, which I acquired since I was a very little girl and I started to read, and I discovered ancient Greek myths, but it also is stemmed from my later influences, one important being Arundhati Roy, whose novel, The God of Small Things, gave me this idea of how to structure a title. And another thing is that this book has an unwritten dedication to my father. And his story is quite sad because in 1970s, he was a young man who was very keen on learning new cultures. He was learning many foreign languages, and that put him on spot for the Soviet regime, because you either put these knowledge to the service of the regime or you would be destroyed. So he was not able to finish his education. He was forced out of the university and never made a career. He had to go and work at the factory, and there he was seriously injured after some time, because imagine a book person, a person learning languages, a person who has assembled a large library of world literature, and that person has to stand at the machine and do the repetitive actions again and again. It was, of course, a tragedy. He never made a career, but he made sure to teach me English since I was very small and make sure my brother and I get a proper education. But that, of course, happened already in independent Ukraine. So the story of Beluta from Arundhati Roy's novel, in a way, reminded me of the story of my father. They both have a sort of broke the rules, the societal norms of that time, and were punished for it. But as you said, the book is very multidimensional. So I'm exploring various dimensions of freedom. It could be a self-fulfillment in a relationship, namely a marriage. It is a freedom of a child growing up, because as I was watching my son growing, I thought that I would do things differently from my parents. I would give him more freedom. We will see what happens, what will be the result, but that was my approach. I'm also exploring freedom of a sick person who is confined to a sick body, confined to a hospital, and how that affects freedom. And also a lot in the dimension of a female perspective, because as a woman, you mostly think as a woman and want to address the issues which are important to other women, but not just that. So basically, there are many poems in which other people recognize themselves. And I think this is the power of poetry, being very concise. It's a short form, it's very emotional, but it's the way that makes people connect to it. And also, it unfolds in the environment where many stories are being repeated, just as myths are repeated through time and space. This is in a way what poetry can do as well. So I guess it's an intuitive form. So nothing of this is really deliberate, except for the need to speak about the past, to connect the past to the present, and also some ideas about the future, because it's important to think about the future. And as Reem said here, we need to find sources of power, sources of energy, and thinking about the future, even in this horrible reality of war that we are enduring. I do still live in Ukraine. My family is there. I'm worried about them every day. But we need to plan. We need to see ahead, because it gives us this anchor and allows us to focus on the most important.
Thank you, Yulia. It's like from homeland, from the war zone. You also have the female energy of and the empowered writing that comes out, and I hope it reaches all of you. And we have always heard about male war poets and male love poets, and here these women, they speak from their intuition, their experience, etc., and they talk about war from multi-dimensional ways. So now my question to Reem is, like in your home, that is her collection, you see that house, your home especially, becomes a war-torn zone as well as a psychological homeland which shelters you from all what's happening abroad. But then, while you also speak that in fact, wars feel at home in our home. Now, how has your exile to the UK, affected your relationship with your homeland? Now, how does the memory of war or love in your homeland work into your poems now? And has it actually detached you from your homeland, or has it tied you to your homeland strongly than ever?
Well, I have a poem saying that I'm like a fish which is out of the sea, but the sea is not out of me, so my homeland is the sea. So even when I go out, it's inside me. Anyway, this is the book that you are talking about, Our Home. Our home, I wrote it when I exiled. It wasn't an exile. It was a bit away from what's happening. I mean, it became unbearable, unlivable. I mean, everyone is leaving. I mean, in the Civil War, it became impossible to live. My father was kidnapped. He was 75. He was put in a car track, and anyway, he was set release after we. Anyway, may God, I hope he's listening to me now. He's in London. He's safe and well at the last. Anyway, we left Iraq after all these, circumstances, very bad things that happened, and we were obliged to leave. We went first to Damascus, lived for a while, then to Egypt. In Egypt, I started seeing war from another perspective. I started feeling my homeland in another different feelings. I started writing about war at last. I mean, this is my 7th book. I have 10. This one was written in Egypt. After writing all these love poems while I was in the battlefield, in pace with death every day. After that, when you watch war with the remote control, it's so different. It is so different. I mean, this when you feel cautious every time, you feel worried, you feel you can't live in peace, while we were in peace while facing war every day, you see. Anyway, concerning your question, I didn't leave. I've been living in London for 15 years, but I've never left Iraq. And I go every time. By the way, I go every year, once and twice. I go and I present myself again and again in poetry sessions and poetry festivals, and I express myself. I'm now happy to criticize what's going on. Now I'm full. I can see. Well, when you face death every day, you can't see. You can't see properly. You need to live. You can't criticize. You can't scream. You can say, I don't want that. You can say no, but you can't live. You can't live normally. When you live normally, you feel human. You can think. You can feel. This is, I have to say, without anything, and May was telling me that this is your most important poem. I'll read it in Arabic, and May will read it kindly in English. The word sleeplessness, which is araq. This is what I wrote in Cairo, and the civil war was taking place in Baghdad. It's a short poem, it won't take long. لمفردة الشعر دالية من عبير، لمفردة الشعر دالية من عبير، ولكن هذا الخريف تجذر حتى نسيت الألم. فضتي لون فيروزها استبدلته شظايا، وأهداب شالية شاحبة من سهاد، فثمة بين هنا وهنالك فرق طفيف. هنالك كنت أنام بكامل موتي لكي لا يفاجئني الموت كل صباح، وصرت هنا لا أنام وصار السرير قلق.
sleeplessness. An item of poetry has a fragrance, but this autumn is so entrenched that I have forgotten the luster. My silver changed its turquoise for shrapnel. The eyelashes of my shawl are pale because of sleeplessness. There is between here and there a little difference. There, I used to sleep with my full depth, so that death wouldn't surprise me every morning. Here, I became sleepless. The bed became a worry.
Thank you so much. Now, I think we'll go to the readings. We're all waiting for our poets to read from their wonderful works. We'll begin with Yulia.
I will start by reading in Ukrainian because I didn't have time to do that on the first day of the festival. And I always feel it is so important for the Ukrainian language to fill the spaces internationally because it's a language that has been banned, twisted, suppressed for many centuries. And it's important that now we have taken it back, we have reclaimed it, we have restored it, and we are continuing to create beautiful literature in it, despite the war. So let me start with a poem from the God of Freedom that was actually made into a song just recently by a legendary Ukrainian rock band, Martvi Pivень, which is Dead Rooster in English. And they have been around since I was a teenager. I used to go to their concerts with my friends. They have been around for decades, and they were always making songs with real poetry, working with texts of significant poets. So for me, it was quite an honor that they made this song, and they also made another one with my poems. But this one is called, in English, it's called 10 Bullets, although the poem is called differently. And I will start by reading it in Ukrainian, so you can hear how the language sounds. Господи, заквітчений трояндами, вбраний в павутину і росу, я тобі через корчі та ями 10 куль між ребер принесу. Де взялись, якого поля ягоди, хто зростив їх, випестив як слід, вилетіли від сваволі п'яні, з жалами холодними, як лід. Господи, палкий та розчарований, з терням на високому чолі. Як тобі ходити у короні босим по розпатраній землі? Запахи людського і горілого, вітер кине м'ячиком в лице. Господи, світи і рясно квітни, поки нас інерція несе. Поки цифри множаться у матриці, поки ранок. Спи, мій Боже, спи. Втриматися. Та за що триматись? За пелюстки, краплі, за шипи. There's still a rhyme tradition in Ukrainian poetry. I do write a lot in free verse, but this one specifically is written rhymed. Well, the English translation does not fully convey that, but I hope it conveys to you the message and the story. It is in the translation called Jesus of war, but it can be called God of war because it's about any higher power. O my Lord, adorned by roses, clothed in spider webs and dew, I will bring to you past chasms and stumps 10 bullets in between my ribs. How did they appear, fruit of what land? Who raised them and nourished them so fully? They soar off, drunk with impunity, with their eyes cold stingers. O my Lord, so ardent and disheartened, thorns pressing against your high forehead. How does it feel to walk wearing a crown, barefoot, through the ravaged land? The wind will cast a ball into your face. It's a smell of something human, burning. Oh, my Lord, shine and bloom abundantly, while inertia is driving us forth, while numbers multiply in the matrix, while it's still early morning. Sleep, my Lord. Let us hold on, but what's left to hold on to? Rose petals, raindrops, and thorns. And thank you to my wonderful poet from New York, Olena Jennings.
Thank you so much. How does it feel to walk wearing a crown, barefoot through the ravaged land? Wow. Reem, now we'd like to listen to you. So, Reem, usually, as you've heard, she recites in Arabic.
My mom always say that I learned English before Arabic because we were in a vacation in London. But I don't know why I don't feel myself unless I speak in Arabic. Okay, بيتنا, our home. بيتنا بيتنا ألفته الحروب. بيتنا ألفته الحروب فهلا تعطلت البوصلة. لا شمال لنا لا جنوب لا سياج نسد به بابنا لا سرير بغير الشظايا ولا سقف يعلو بغير الشهيد. طفلة الحب بكت طفلة الحب أثقلها الانتظار فلا زيت يدفئ أحلامها في الليالي ولا ضوء في الأرملة وما من جديد سوى بعض حرب على رأس حرب وبوصلة البيت تبقى تشير لسرب الحمام. فديتك قل لي متى ستعود. We listen to the translation and then we continue. Our home. Wars feel at home in our home. Wars feel at home in our home. Would the compass ever flop? We have no north, no south, no fences to close our door, no beds without shrapnel, no roof goes up without a martyr. The love little girl cried, weighed down by her longing. No oil warms her dreams at night. No light in the widow's sleeplessness. And nothing is new. But some war
on top of a war. Our home compass pointing to a flight of doves, begging them, please, oh please, when will you come back?
Thank you, thank you.
So the book, the Sea Tells My Fortune, the one we talked about, and the fact that we were just writing about writing and drawing about love and the sea and the colorfulness, and me and my sister Ban Qais. So the beginning of the book says, أتحداكم, I challenge you. الصباحات تركض كالخيل. الصباحات تركض كالخيل، لكنني قد أفوز بكبوة. وليل امرئ القيس شدد أمراسه، بيد أني قد أبتليه بنزوة. وسدت دروب وعم خراب وحرم خمر المشاعر، لكنني سوف أسكر حتى بقهوة.
I challenge you. The mornings run like horses. The mornings run like horses. Yet I may win by horsefall. The night of Imru al-Qais, who is a very famous old poet in Arabic, the night of Imru al-Qais
aimed its ropes.
but I may yet try it on a whim. Ways are blocked, ruin is everywhere. The wine of the senses is tabooed, but I shall get drunk even on a coffee.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sure we're all drunk on poetry now. We'll close the session with a poem each from both the poets. If you, in the first session, in fact, Julia read to us a poem about her husband and herself and the vow of marriage and how it was taken by a lot of people as a vow for marriage. So we'd like to listen to Julia, her choice of poetry. We shall go first, please.
Okay, this is short SMSs from, what do you call it? A booby-trapped city or a bombed city. So it's a long actually poem. So I'll read. It's the SMSs when we start only sending SMS to our parents, to our families, just to let them know that we are still alive. So these are few. I mean, we'll read three, for example, very short ones, and we'll. كأن قراد يموت، كأن قراد يموت، ففي آخر النشرة الدموية نلمح بغداد، أشلاء سيارة كان فيها قبيل ثوان أب أو بيوت.
As if we were maggots dying at the end of a bloodied news, we catch a glimpse of Baghdad being a carcass of a car that seconds before carried a father or homes.
بكف وحيدة ستلطم خد الذهول، بكف وحيدة ستحمل نعش أخيك، بكف وحيدة ستكتب أختك أو من تبقى بشارع هذا الخراب حروفا من النعي فوق التراب.
With a single hand, You will beat your shocked cheek. With a single hand, you will carry the hairs of your brother. With a single hand, your sister, or whoever is left. In this street of desolation, will write letters of your obituary in the dust.
لم يعد في المدينة مقبرة. لم يعد في المدينة مقبرة. كل أرض السلام غدت رقعة من رخام لقبر البلد.
No cemetery is left in town. All this land of peace has become a big slab of marble to bury the land.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So now over to Lydia.
You know, dear friends, I must say that everywhere I go, and I've been in India 3 times, and just in January in Delhi and Jaipur, I'm happy to be in Dibrugarh today. Everywhere I go, I feel I'm not alone, and I carry the presence of other Ukrainian writers. And actually, the entire generation of our writers were repressed and killed in 1930s. I was telling this story to a lady yesterday, and she was shocked. 30,000 Ukrainian intellectuals were killed or repressed in 1930s during Soviet. And I feel that they're all standing behind me. They're having my back. But unfortunately, also, my generation has suffered as well. And I have several friends who were killed by Russia in this war since 2014. And let me just say their names here, some of them, because there are hundreds. Alexander Osatko, Victoria Amelina, Maxim Krivtsov, Yurko Kostishin are some of the writers that were killed in this war. And actually this continues, and I should be wearing black probably, but it makes me look older. And I know my friend Victoria would tell me, you look good in green, wear green instead. So that's why I'm doing that. Thank you. I will read my last poem. It is from the recent texts. I wrote it in 2022 in the spring, when I was rethinking the power of words, and the poem is called Words. Who says words are worthless now? Our words are being written on the air with the incandescent iron of our breath. They strike like the clotted blood on pale lips. They cut into the soil under our feet, settling on our clothes and shoes like dust from ruined homes. Our words reach out to our beloveds, to everyone scattered around the bullet-holed map of our country. Words like the telegraph wires between hearts, like ropes that lash us tightly together. Oh, how much we are able to love as one. How much we are able to hate. The words we stuff in a backpack just before we leave. The words we grab to maintain who knows what kind of balance when the earth is kicked out from under our feet like a wobbly stool. Words we press to a savage wound, a ripped open, soft belly of a teenage girl named Safety. Our words are hardened, swollen with rage, black from grief. like the concrete covering of an old bomb shelter. There's nothing more durable, nothing less evanescent. Thank you. Дякую.
Hello. In a session where love and war diverged and converged in both Arabic, Ukrainian, and in English, we can say that there's nothing like more powerful than words. So I hope everybody enjoyed this session. If you have any questions, actually we can take a couple of questions. If you have questions to the poets, I encourage the students out here who've been like listening so avidly. I request you to ask a few questions, anybody, but especially the students.
Hello, am I audible? Yeah. As ma'am very correctly said, first of all, we are drunk in poetry. Coming from this land, coming from Assam, all of our families have stories related to violence, not necessarily war, but insurgency, militancy, all of that. So, the best thing that I really found today is no matter which country you're from, no matter which place you're from, the similarity in emotion, you know, the similarity in feeling that we feel and you feel when you talk about violence. At the end of the day, it's just violence and gore, right? What I really wanted to ask is, I am a researcher, a PhD scholar of literature, and I am merging my work with history and anthropology. Uh, and I try to research on the voices from coming from conflicted zones, um, but I do not focus on archival history. I focus on the literatures coming out of it, right? Now, as literary personalities, I would really love to know that when we take your voices to academia, to research, what can we do to legitimize these voices? Because as literature scholars, we really face that problem that, okay, you're working on poetry, you're working on fiction. Where is the fact? Where is the legitimacy, right? So, if you could just give me your 2 cents on it, what you feel. Because we know for a fact this is a very real thing. From your emotion, we can close read, we can analyze the reality, the history. But how do we convince a historian of that who is sitting in an academic setup, right? So I would love to get your 2 cents on that. Yeah.
Thank you for this wonderful question. And I do admire researchers who are literature. And I should say my advice would be to provide some context. And since we as internationally vocal authors are quite available, you can reach out to us and discover some context about the poems that you're writing about. This historical events that led to writing a certain poem, a personal story of the author behind it. We can put so much context to each poem. Personally, I can, and I'm willing to do that. I'm happy to collaborate because I know how important it is. And talking about Ukraine that has been invisible for such a long time and still remains only a war zone to many people, but it's a beautiful country with rich history, rich culture. It has been there since 5th century in a different form, of course, of Kievan state. But still, so please do that, provide context, connect with the author, research the historical event around the poetry you're working on. Thank you.
I think you answered. Let me answer the other question, okay? Let us wait for another question and I'll answer. Thank you, Yuri.
Do you have any other questions?
Yes, I have. I have two questions for Reem and for Julia. First, Reem, I'm deeply moved by your poems about your homeland and how war reshapes. I want to ask you about love and poems. Do you think that love can help us to forget this bad memories about war? I share with you a lot of memories about war. Um, or do you think this is a way to survival distractions? Okay, and for you, Julia, we live in the age of novel, as we hear always. Have you ever thought to write a novel? Especially, you have a lot of stories about violence, about war, and I think new generation need to know what happened during war. Thank you.
Uh, for, uh, Thank you very much, Lana, for your question. Lana is a Lebanese writer, so she's our colleague in wars. Okay, you will drink wars together. Anyway, Lena, love is the best solution for everything. It's the nectar of life. Love is the nectar of life. I mean, what is best? What is better than it? Um, I told you, by love, I could fight hatred. Believe me, by peace, you can fight the war. This is how I mean, and this is Gandhi's concept, isn't it? And I believe in it. I don't believe in it. I lived it, and I could I could feel myself through it. I mean, it's a way of life. It's not a belief only. You see, so love is the best solution. And you said, I think you said, can we forget? Nothing is forgettable. Nothing is forgettable, but you can process. You can process your wounds by love. You can process. And by the way, I maybe I used this word so many times today. Excuse me, the word facing death every day. But believe me, by facing death every day, you learn how to cherish your life, how to love your life, how to feel the meaning of living. Without death, you can't cherish life. Without the black, you can't see the white. I mean, this comparison is so simple and so complicated, but this is how it works. I mean, this is how it works. We can't cherish our lives without facing death. And I think when we feel the loss, the loss of anything, the loss of our love. I mean, when we have a heartbreak or something, this is the time when we feel that we miss that person. When we miss that person, it's when we feel we don't take life for granted without suffering. I mean, so that's why it's a key word: never ever take anyone or anything in this world for granted. By this, thank you.
Word, you can live a
Most better peaceful life. Cross cross fingers. Anyway, thank you, Lena.
I still might add a little bit to the first question that was asked to Reem. That's what I'm observing, even in our soldiers. They're fighting for love to their families, friends, to their homeland. They're not fighting for hate. The enemy came to us with hate and destruction, and we must take up arms. We cannot just stand peacefully there. We will be killed. So we must take up weapons, but we must also have this inner peace inside of us and get drunk on love to our beloveds. That's important. So I fully agree and fully support my colleague here. And also, I will read some of the poetry by my colleagues who are now in the army, who are defending Ukraine tomorrow at the performance Tales of Hope and Courage. So you're all welcome. And to answer the question that was addressed to me, I'm actually working on a novel right now. And I've just started, of course. I travel so much, it takes up a lot of my time, but I'm carrying it around with me, this idea. And this would connect the past, the present, and probably the future, because I feel it is important that we understand that life is multidimensional, and we are so much who we are because of the past generations, and we have so much influence on the future generation, the children, the youth. So it's important to absorb this information and spread it. And I do hope you have received some valuable insights from our session. So thank you very much.
There's one more question. Yeah.
First of all, it is my honor to ask this question. So, good afternoon to everyone present here. So, my question is, as a student, so which book should be valuable, like for discipline and for like maintenance for life? In so, which book should we, which novel should we study?
Yeah, there must be so many.
According to them, their lives themselves are greatest books. So you look deeply into your life, reflect, and as they said, spread the light of love. That's the most important thing in life. Thank you. So I think
There's one book. She'd been like raising her arm for such a long time. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm so sorry I missed half of the session, but yesterday I bought your book of poems, The God of Freedom, and I was reading till midnight yesterday, and I was wondering to ask you this question. Your poems are in search of love. Your poems are describing the grief of the people in search of peace. So, do you think that grief is the driving force behind your beautiful poetry?
That's a very sad question, actually, but it's very true. I mean, we cannot hide from grief. That's what we're experiencing. And it affects us, but it's up to us how we use it. If we use it as a fuel to do something good, to help our homeland, our loved ones in this situation, or are we just locking inside with it and letting it destroy us? I mean, it's important to process it, and poetry is one way to process it. But I feel that my work is not only fueled by grief. I cannot escape it, of course. I have to address it. I always write what I feel strongly about. And I cannot stay indifferent to the suffering of my people. But in this book, The God of Freedom, so many poems are inspired, for example, by my family, by my friends. I just meet in different situations. So I think it's one of the drivers, but and I don't wish that anyone just uses grief as a driver. It's just one of the things in life, and we have to accept it and process it and do something about it so it doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
For having attended this session, and we call it a day. Thank you so much.
So, as we come to the conclusion of the session, I extend my deepest gratitude to our esteemed panelists for illuminating us with their reflections on poetry from the conflict zones. Poetry is indeed an art that carries forward the human voice beyond the battlefield, and it also reminds us that even in times of peril, the spirit of poetry continues to speak. I thank our esteemed panelists once again, and I also thank everyone in the session run smoothly. Thank you. Have a good day. Uh, we also are very honored to have with us our Vice Chancellor.